In Hunt Showdown, there are 4 available tool slots, and all the things that can fill those tool slots do something different. Decoys make noise to mimic footsteps. Blank fire decoys mimic gunshots. Decoy fuses mimic dynamite sticks.
Wait a minute!
Knuckles deal blunt damage, knives deal piercing or slashing. Everything has a purpose and a defined role. And whilst those roles and purpose are not incredibly different from the others, it still makes sense. Except for one. The knuckle knife. I'm just kidding. It's the heavy knife. The knuckle knife is just fantastic. Releasing an update 1.2 alongside the knuckle knife, the heavy knife was, for a time, relatively interesting. It can only slash rather than the regular knife slash or stab. It deals way more damage than the regular knife. It's great for PvE enemies, except for armors, and of course immolators, as the former cost a lot more stamina to kill and the latter would explode.
Tenacious. That's good.
At this point in time, the heavy knife fit the description of what I discussed at the beginning. It had a defined role. It had a purpose. However, as of the Light in the Shadow event, Crytek would change concertina wire to only be broken via bladed slashing weapons. And explosives like dynamite and F&J. This always felt like something that was added to make people run the heavy knife. It probably would have been the case too. It would have been successful. If not, in the very same event, they released throwing axes. Some stats real quick. The heavy knife has a light attack of 72 damage with a cost of 15 stamina. For its slash, it has a heavy attack of 120 damage, 25 stamina. Also a slash. The regular knife deals 52 damage with 20 stamina. The heavy attack is 106 damage at 25 stamina, and it's a stab rather than a slash. Great for PvP. And the last bladed option, the throwing axe, has a light attack of 75 damage and costs a whopping 40 stamina. Also a slash. The heavy attack deals 142 damage at 55 stamina. And again, it's a slash. However, what you're most likely using the throwing axe for is the throne, which does 162 damage for 20 stamina usage. Pretty good. When broken down like this with the stats, you can see that the heavy knife on paper is shown to have the highest damage per stamina consumption of any bladed tool, as well as being the most efficient for stamina consumption in general. So why isn't the heavy knife used all the time by your favorite streamers, YouTubers, hunt content creators, and every knife rusher that you find in the bayou? Well, it's because of those keywords. On paper. In practice, the heavy knife is kind of useless. And here's why. Firstly, in a PvEvP game where playing the objective means facing the opposition that comes from that, the heavy knife is outmatched by the regular knife. Players only have 150 health, so none of the bladed tools are capable of one-shotting a player in the body with a melee strike. Meaning, unless you go for the head, which you should be, you're swinging a second time anyway. Since you're going for the head, the regular knife stabbing animation is superior to the heavy knife swing, because it gives you more range and pinpoint accuracy. Also, with a large sweeping strike, like the heavy knife, you're more likely to hit the arms anyway. He's dead. Off, heavy knife, there's my reason for not using it! So, it's the inferior PvP choice, but it must be great at clearing AI, right? Probably the best! Again, on paper, it absolutely is, but in practice, no. Not at all. This is because not every AI can be killed with bladed weapons. Immolators stop that completely, and unless you want to lose most of your stamina bashing one to death with your gun, or shoot them and make noise, you're going to want to beat them up with a stamina-efficient blunt choice, as in dusters, or the knuckle knife. Well, I hear you say, at least it's the most stamina-efficient, you said so yourself. I did. But again, it's only the most stamina-efficient on paper. In practice, all grunts will die to 2 light attacks with the knuckle knife, which will even cost 1 less stamina overall. On top of this, the knuckle knife can deal with all AI types in the game as it covers both blunt and bladed. So what about concertina wire? Your knuckle knife can't deal with that. That's totally true. However, throwing axes break wire easily, and regular axes/shovels can be found around the map with ease, with most compounds having 1 or 2 located nearby, some of them in set spawns, as in the case of lumber having an axe always lodged within one of the tree stumps. Compare this to the throwing axe that can break wire, can kill armors silently, or hives in one body or headshot, and deal with concertina armors effortlessly from a distance. also silently. And all of a sudden, the niche of the heavy knife is even further reduced. So, let's recap. The heavy knife, in practice, is the worst option for PvP due to its reduced range and slash animation, the worst option for PvE, both in overall stamina consumption to kill and applications of that, and the worst option for breaking wire, as environmental options exist in abundance. So, how do we make it better? Well, for starters, you could end up with bleeding strength being increased from medium to intense to give it stronger PvP viability. After all, this is a PvP-centered game, and PvE cannot bleed. Not hitting the head wouldn't be such a big deal if a heavy body or limb shot applied an intense bleeding effect. In the past, I'd never have suggested this, as landing a 120 body swing with an intense bleed would just be painful. You're dead immediately, even with the short range. However, with Bloodless having its trait cost reduced and the current event encouraging people to try it, and no doubt use it more in future as a result, I can see the suggestion being far less of an issue than it once would have been. I mean, look, you've got Bulwark that straight up counters the Bomb Lance Harpoon, an attack that takes hundreds, if not thousands of hours to practice to land effectively. I can see no reason for the heavy knife bleeding to not get a buff with Bloodless as it exists currently. Anyway, that's the heavy knife. Short and sharp. Good on paper, but not in practice. I wonder if there are any other weapons that are outclassed into basically obsolescence. No, can't think of anything.
Death is no man, death is no ring, death is